Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Trader Merlin Show for your Hump Day Wednesday edition. A little bit of, I would say, a quieter day for some of the markets, but for a lot of the tech and energy pieces we're going to look at today, high flyers, big gains, and continuing on the train as it keeps on rolling, which is the graphic to start today's show. However, before I dive into today's show, I will be in Las Vegas. I know some of you are Las Vegas fans. Unfortunately, my day in Las Vegas will be a Tuesday morning. I'm giving a presentation for the Money Show again. They've invited me up there, which is awesome, as part of the Master Symposium. That will be on Tuesday, July 15th is the date that I'll be there. That my session goes from 10:30 to 12:30. That'll be 2 hours. And they asked me to do stuff on cryptocurrency, conveniently, right? You would think they would ask me for things like on options or futures or Forex or whatever. No, apparently I'm a cryptocurrency guru, and that's it. That's all I am. Nothing else, just crypto. So I'll be doing my topic presentation to be Filtering Chaos, How to Choose the Right Currency in Digital Asset Investments, which I think is probably very timely and important given all the garbage and fluff and stuff that's floating around out there. So if you are going to be attending that, you go to moneyshow.com to register for that up in Las Vegas and use the code 065234. They should have put like Trader Merlin on here or Trading Academy or something like that. But anyway, 065234 is your code. I think you get some discount there. I hope you get some discount there. I'm not sure exactly how it works. But anyway, that is my only gratuitous plug. I don't usually like plugging myself. But hey, I'm going to Vegas. I'll be there. I think I'm going to get there Monday evening. And then have a Tuesday presentation, probably head out Tuesday afternoon. So if you guys are around, let me know. Maybe we can catch up. All right, let's get into our topic du jour. Running out of topic titles, guys. Honestly, I'm really difficult to figure out all these title topics. I just picked The Train Keeps Rolling, which it feels like that's where we're at right now. I'm running through a bunch of headlines today in the market, and it just seems like unbridled enthusiasm. Everyone's over the moon, and I have to say I'm bullish as well. But at a certain point, we're going to get a little bit long in the tooth and have a little bit of a retracement. Given the current situation, the peace talks with China, maybe the Russia and Ukraine stuff coming to a ceasefire as well, we could very easily see this market back at all-time highs here in no time. So we will dive into that. Big ups to your guidance helped me choose some years back. Good. I'm glad it had helped, I guess hindsight's 2020. We could have easily been on the other side of this, right, Big Eb, and said, your guidance totally screwed me and I picked the wrong stuff. But fortunately for us, we're on the right side of that one. So I had a couple questions that came in as well, but I just want to kind of look at the broad picture here and kind of look at what was rocking today, what was really moving. At the end of the day, the S&P was actually rather unchanged. And if you look at the momentum that started with this big gap up on Monday, right? Of course, we had the Trump news and China news over the weekend. Then, of course, we gapped up on Monday morning and just continued to have a huge bull rally on the S&P 500, closing about 5,836. Excellent. Great. Yesterday, we retested that level at 58.36 and continued to rally, showing even more gains. And then today, it's just one of the smallest, most condensed candles you're going to see on this page. Like if I scrolled out here and went all the way back, months and months and months, you'd be hard-pressed to find a candle that has as small of a range as we did today. So literally from bottom to top, if I was to do just a pure percentage range, 0.59%. Crazy. Crazy to have such a small move. Now, this tells me one of two things. First is that the market is just like a sprint, right? It just had a big sprint. They ran the 50-meter or 100-yard dash or whatever, and they're pausing with their hands on their knees, taking a breather, and they're going to continue the second leg, which many people would say is the high probability trend because the trend is your friend until what? The bend at the end. So from a probability perspective, it does look like this is going to go higher. Now, to play contrarian and also go into technical analysis books by Martin Prang, he will talk about when you have a big surge up in momentum and things really rock to the upside, you'll get a pause and you get a retracement from that period. Therefore, this candle that we see today is a spinning top, which means it's the real body is right near the, let me see if I can zoom in on this bad boy, a little bit hard to see when it's so condensed. All right, so I'm really zoomed in here so you guys can see kind of the bigger picture of it. But today's candle, you've got the green little body here because it was just barely up for the S&P. It's lower, it's closer to the bottom end and has a long topping tail. So it's a spinning top, like a top you would play with as a kid. Your dreidel for all my Hebrews out there. So what does that tell me and how should I play it? Well, I'll tell you, the simplest thing to do is to remove all decision from that process and let the market tell you what to do. So I've shown you this before. I would simply put a line. Actually, the high for today on the S&P was 59.25. But the high from yesterday was 59.27. So I'm actually going to use the high from yesterday as my breakout here. And then I'm going to go down to the low of today, which was 5,890 on the S&P. And I'm simply going to draw a line there. And from this perspective, it looks like a massive range. But wait till I put this back in a normal scale. Very small little range. So I think you just kind of wait this one out. If you start to see a breakdown down below 58.90, I would think there might be some profit taking. It's just been a phenomenal run. Wouldn't surprise me to see profit taking. Now, if there's good news, of course, with a PPI number that comes out tomorrow morning, you could definitely see this thing rocket through the ceiling on this one or the floor. So, no, I got you, John. Yeah, we had CPI Tuesday, PPI coming out on Thursday, which will be your major piece for the day. So that's really it for the broader markets. I actually thought we'd have a bigger up move today. I thought we'd see more momentum, and we got momentum, but it really came from just a handful of companies. If we look down here to our Magnificent Seven, out of those seven, 5 of them were up. You had Apple just barely down 0.29, no big deal. And again, Apple is just stuck at this overhead supply level at $212, call it 213. It's just been smacking its head there for the past 3 days. That's not a good sign, especially when the market is absolutely ripping. You had Amazon as well, only down 0.53% today, but also still struggling to break through this 192.65 mark I had. Yes, I know, it's at 210 right now. Oh, sorry. I can't even see my own freaking charts. There we go. So it struggled at 192.50, 192.65 back here, broke through it, and now we are just holding. So the reason I brought up Amazon wasn't because of the break. It was because of the shooting star from yesterday. Most don't have that shooting star, and today you actually got a little bit of a breakdown. I hope we get a nice sell-off here. Maybe allow me to get some good premium if it does start to drop. But that was one of your weaker ones today. Now you move to the upside here, as Big Eb says in chat, Big Daddy Nvidia. Yeah, this talk with the Middle East and Saudi Arabia and what Trump is doing, it could be big business for Nvidia. It's just really opening the floodgates to much, much more sales. So your Meta looked great today, but again, same thing. 4-day rally that's epic. Pausing very, very narrow range today at the top there as well. You had Microsoft up 0.85%. It looked better because you had this big solid green candle and finally a convincing break of that supply zone that we'd drawn out there, peaking at 448.29. So Microsoft actually looking really good. You'll probably see Microsoft charge and try to get back to this little peak here, which goes to December 12th of last year, which is around 456. So you only got $4 left. I could hit that by tomorrow morning. Now, Google also having a bit of a rip, but nowhere near the strength of the other ones. If I were to overlap charts of like Amazon and some of the other big names, Amazon had that big pop, Google looks real weak. And I think that the overwhelming concern here, well, there's two big concerns for Google, which is why, if you are long Google, you might want to soften up or protect yourself a little bit. Remember, you've got 2 lawsuits going on with Google or Alphabet. You've got one in San Francisco against advertising, and then you got one against their Chrome browser, and they're talking about potentially breaking that off and spinning it off. Antitrust issues, right, Oliver? That's not that great. The other side here, which I'll tell you, I'm living proof of it. I was doing some work today, and I needed research. Now, most of us, if you're querying something, you're going to go out and you're going to go to Google and you're going to do your search for whatever it is. For example, I wanted to do some research on the SALT program, right? That's basically taxation, that the tax program and the tax bill from Donald Trump. And I wanted to know, SALT's not from Donald Trump, but that's a legacy tax program, state and local taxation. There's a lot of discussion on that on Capitol Hill. So I wanted to run down on what the big points were on the SALT tax issues, as well as Trump's tax plan. And I could go out to Google and I could just dive and go to 30 different websites and gather a bunch of different information. But now you have something that's so much easier, right? I can use Grok or I can use OpenAI and I can just say, tell me all the details of the SALT tax program. Tell me all the details of Trump's tax bill and what does all that mean? That saves tremendous time. And the reason I'm explaining that is because I think you're going to start to see Google lose a lot of eyeballs with regards to search. I know for myself, I would probably say my search time on Google has been cut in half as I'm using AI as my agent to find the news and give me better better plans from. Is it cold? Flannel shirt? Margaret, no, it's not cold. I just feel a little sluggish today. I feel a little under the weather. Maybe just pushing myself too hard. So I don't know. I'm in my comfort clothes. I'm in pajamas too, but we won't show you the bottom half. So I think you're going to see Google continue to struggle. As these other Magnificent Seven stocks rally, I think Google is going to continue to struggle. Now, the other side here for our Magnificent Seven, since we're on that topic, would be jumping over to Tesla, which had just another great day, ripping to the upside, 4% as well, 347. I mean, keep in mind, this thing was in the low 200s just like 3 weeks ago. So Perplexity is another one, Andres, if you're looking at AI, Claude, Perplexity. Guys, these AI agents are going to make your life so much easier. I'll talk about AI here in a second, how it's doing job destruction and what that might mean for company profits as well. Chad says, I use four of them, Grok, Gemini, Copilot, and ChatGPT when one doesn't give me what I want. I've actually really like ChatGPT and I like Grok, but I'm actually moving more towards Grok because I don't like Sam Altman. Sam Altman strikes me as an evil person. There's something about him doesn't strike me as right. He has this, it's like a Batman villain in my mind. I just feel like he's I don't know. I have a personal grudge against Sam Altman. So Grok's responses have been really some of my favorites, and they're incredibly fast. They're way faster than OpenAI, ChatGPT. Free AI, Grok. So I don't know. I have the paid account, so I pay $8 a month to use X, but I think you can get Grok for free. But it's you're right. There's different responses for different ones as well. Might as well smash all the technology and delete all accounts and emails. Oh, no, I'm not going that far. No. I love it. I love AI. It's awesome. So let's discuss Tesla's issue here. Obviously, there's the compensation plan that Elon Musk has been going back and forth on. The courts in Delaware saying, no, you're not going to get that pay. The shareholders voted to pay him as anybody who's a Tesla shareholder should have. I think we had this discussion a while back. The benchmarks that Elon Musk had set to achieve to get this pay package were off the charts, right? They had to get it to a $600 billion company. No one had done anything close to that in that short frame of time, and he did it. So in my mind, not only has he earned it, he's earned a lot more, in my opinion, for what he's done for Tesla. Now, if you look at the price chart here, there was talk today about the board getting together and figuring out a comp plan and getting this past them, because I feel like it's kind of been looming on them. Elon Musk is demanding 20% of the shares, apparently, or 20% of the company. He's also hinted in the past that if he doesn't get it, he's going to take the technology and he's going to leave. And he's going to go start another company, which could add a tremendous amount of volatility to Tesla. Remember, Tesla's got the Optimus robot. They've got self-driving cars. Of course, they've got Tesla cars themselves and Tesla Powerwalls, etc. If Elon Musk were to leave in a hostile manner and do something like that and start a competing AI firm, which let's be fair here, if you look at what he's been doing with Grok has nothing to do with Tesla. Grok is his X corporation, which is not publicly traded. He's building an AI system that for day-to-day use is way better than OpenAI in my opinion, and I could see him pushing that agenda if he doesn't get what he wants out of this deal. So I do expect to see a lot more volatility here with Tesla. So for those of you Tesla shareholders, beware. It looks phenomenal, and I am very bullish overall if Elon Musk stays there. If Elon Musk were to leave, I would be a little concerned. Not that Tesla's going to fail. Tesla certainly will survive, but I just don't. It misses this enigma that is Elon Musk there, and the bizarreness that he is. That brings, I don't know. You bring in fans to support him, and I think people will follow him where he goes. And if he leaves and starts his own AI company, I think a lot of people will go there too. Spinning wheel. You got a spinning wheel, Anders? I didn't do a speed test today. I was running really slow here today, so real quickly, I can tell you if it's my end. Usually it's my end, but I've been pretty consistent here. So it's just Andres. Another thing, and I mentioned this in the past, I put it on. So I have 3 different settings for the show of speed that I can do. There's low latency, which is like it's like 40-second delay. There's mid latency, which is like 20-second delay, and then there's super low latency, which is like 3 seconds. I've been doing it now on super low latency, so you guys are getting a very fast feed from me. There's very little delay. Yeah, my internet's fine. I've actually running really good speeds right now, so it's just something on your end, Andres. And I've also noticed in the publication for it, it said end users may experience glitchiness if you do use those super low latency. So I'm still up for changing it back to a slower latency, or to a higher latency if you guys want, just so we don't get any spinning wheels. But just letting you know what I got on my end as far as output. So from a chart perspective, Tesla looking absolutely amazing. You can't ignore this little blob of price action that goes back to February. We're just about there. That runs between 354 and 367 as overhead supply. So we're coming up to a level where I would anticipate there being some supply to help push this one down a little bit. So hopefully we'll make it there. Oliver says 367. Now the big daddy, Nvidia. Again, this is another one that has just been on absolute fire as those barriers to entry to the Middle East and other countries, or at least the handcuffs with regards to what Nvidia can do, are slowly being undone. This opens the door to a tremendous amount of additional business for them. And now with the deals and the talks that Trump is having with the Saudis and Abu Dhabi, I think that there's a lot more potential. Now, be careful, because when you have something that moves up this fast, you usually get knee-jerk reactions back, right? It's like dropping that pebble in the pond. When you drop a boulder in the pond, you get a big depression in the water, but then all of a sudden you get the big spikes up. And this may be that moment where you get that big spike up in Nvidia. You are coming into overhead supply, not nothing that great, but right around 139. So just keep your eye on that one. Saba says getting a little frothy. No problem, Andres. It's always nice to let me know these things, because if it's on my end, I'll do my best to fix it. But sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Today, I am running pretty good. So that is your Magnificent Seven. I'm certainly of the opinion that we're going to have a little bit of a pause here. I like the way that today's action formed just on the S&P. We have a little bit of a spinning top after a really sharp rally. And again, I think you're looking for these levels below 58.90 or above 59.27 to either go long or short at those respective breakout points. So there we go. And let's just, since I'm here, go through my top 8. So gold actually had a pretty interesting thing happen today. We were moving up last night. So I was watching this as we rolled over Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, and we were starting to move a little bit higher on gold. And I was like, okay, we're going to get that bounce because we've hit this already, hit it a second time. We had the Harami. I thought we were going to get that nice move up. And today, just erase that. Now, what this emphasizes here is the very large move to risk-on investments, right? You saw technology firms just get flooded with capital today, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, that breakdown below the lows on gold futures below 3,200, it begs the question, where are we stopping? Now, if you notice these big green candles that go all the way back to April 7th, that was a huge move up. I would expect there to be some fills here, and you notice there's gaps. That's just the rollover gap on the futures market, but is there anything maybe on the hourly time frame that looks like a more attractive retracement point? So let me pull this back here and see if we can find anything. I really don't see anything that jumps off the screen at me as far as a strong demand zone. I mean, I know some of you will point out to this April 10th low. I'm not a big fan of that one right on the R open here. I think that your 3,000 ends up being your target here for gold. And that target will be achieved if, and this is a big if we continue to get bullish sentiment on the equity markets, right? That'll bring it all the way back down to 3,000. I really didn't think we'd see that kind of weakness. I saw in the comment there, Margaret saying double top confirmed. Yeah, absolutely. You've got the double top breaking down below that baseline. So double top confirmed. If you're looking for a measuring object, as you know, markets like to look for, you go from the peak of the double top to your baseline, which is right. This is difficult to do with the. Let me put that to there, and that means that you should get down to just about 3,000. It actually, if you're using it as a measuring object, it says 29.72, which would be literally the dead low from April 7th. So pretty darn close to where that 3,000 level is. There we go. Yeah, also if yields keep surging, right? Yep, but that would be the risk off. People getting out of equities and moving, people getting into equities and getting out of the risk-off assets like gold and bonds. Okay, next on my list, we have crude oil. Oh, that was an interesting one today too. So I anticipated crude oil kind of slowing down a little bit as it came into this congestion we saw from back in early April. Today, you have a Harami formation right at $64. So even though you saw a little bit of a down move today in crude oil, it's a Harami formation. Big move up, hesitation. I'd put a low below the low of today, right at today's low, which on crude oil was 62.75. If you break down below that tomorrow, I think you get a great short opportunity. All right, next, Bitcoin. This is really just a mess. The last 4 days have been very messy. I don't see anything technically. You could draw a yellow box around that if you wanted to. Let me just get rid of that yellow box because that one's violated. You could draw a yellow box around this current action, but I don't think it's really worth it. I think you'll just get a little more hesitation before moving back up to all-time highs by, at this rate, I think you get all-time highs by next week. I know it sounds crazy. Okay, now back to our broad market indexes. The Russell has been the weakest of our three, which is cause for concern if you go back to traditional textbook theory on financial markets, because the Russell should be leading this rally to the upside, and it's not. Today you were down 0.91% on the Russell, closing at 2189, but it's also right into this overhead supply zone, which was established from back in March. So I'll drag this one out here if I can. There we go. Now we pierced through it, but we didn't close above it back on May 12th, and now we're retracing out of it. So expectations are, just like with the index, is a potential pullback here because Russell's already started that pullback, already started to show a little bit of weakness. Now your big dog, S&P, we already looked at this one, so 0.07 for the day. Spinning top formation right at the top of a big move. Unfortunately, it's not at a supply zone. It'd be great if this orange box coincided with the supply zone, but it does not. So we just take that as is. All right, top three, dollar index. The dollar index was down significantly today, then started to rally back, only up 0.11 on the day. All in all, where do you think this thing's going? It's tough to say. If you look at that picture, it feels like we're still in a downtrend, and it feels like we just came back up to the downtrend line. And therefore, the expectation would be the dollar's going to get weaker. Remember, that's what the president wants. That's what Scott Bessent wants, the Secretary of the Treasury. They want a weaker dollar. So it would not surprise me to see this quasi-invisible hand of government start to push this one back down. But today, it did recoup a lot of its losses and ended up positive 0.11% on the Dixie. Last two, Nasdaq, of course, fueled by the capos of the Magnificent Seven. You had Nvidia back above $3 trillion market cap today. You also had, Tesla's big rally. And there's really no significant overhead supply. I know that you could probably torture this and get a supply zone out of this candle that goes back to February 26th. But I just don't have a lot of confidence in that one. I mean, we're literally at the upper end of it right now as we speak. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Market says, so the Magnificent Seven are leading us up. I would say it's the Magnificent 5 or 6 maybe. I think there's a couple in there that are kind of dragging it down. But yeah, if you look at the percentage rally for some of these Magnificent Sevens, let's go look. Here's the Nasdaq 100, and let's go from our low to where we are today. Dead low to dead high, you're looking at a 30% rally in the Nasdaq. If I go to some of the big leaders here, let's say Nvidia, which is a big component in the Nasdaq 100, it's 56%. So clearly that's pulling us up, right? No argument there. Then you go to Tesla, which people, it's not that big of a deal. Well, it's up 62%. Clearly, that's helping that index. Then you look at one of the heavier weighted ones, right? So here's here's Apple. Apple is one of the heavier weighted in that index. It's up 26%. So this one is actually worse performing than the overall Nasdaq 100 index. What about Amazon? So Amazon, going from that low we had back on April 7th to where we are today, to the close, 30%. So this is exactly what the Nasdaq 100 is. So Apple's worse than the Nasdaq. Amazon's right in line. What about Meta? I think you can tell right away, Meta's better. Meta's looking real good. From those lows we had on April 21st to where we're at now, you're 37%. So yeah, I do think, let's go to Google. Google's underperforming, and I think it goes back to what I was talking about. Yeah, they're only up 16.9%. So they look pretty bad. That's dragging it down. But Microsoft is a much bigger component in that index, right? If you look at the Nasdaq 100, Microsoft's a way bigger piece, 31%. So it's beating the market. The only ones that are not beating the market are Apple and Google. Apple and Google are the only ones not beating it. So yeah, I would say the Magnificent Seven is leading that charge to the upside. Absolutely. With a dollar, it's a hammer with a tail in a demand zone. Well, I looked at that. It is technically, that's a hammer, but is it after a really big sell-off? Normally this hammer formation, which is on the dollar index today on the daily time frame, normally that would be at the bottom of a downtrend. So if I saw today's candle, the one my cursor is on, and I saw it back here, let's say on April 22nd, I'd be loving it. I would be loving it. Right here, I'm not that excited about it. And yeah, you could call this a demand zone. It's not that strong, but certainly you could argue that this, the top of that demand zone right around 100.64, bottoming out at the low end of this tail, which is 100.08. So yeah, I'm okay with calling that a hammer. If you're going to look at it that way, though, Les, it's really just about what are the simple rules, right? We can have all kinds of plans here. It's real simple. You put a line across the top of that hammer formation for today, and you say if it breaks above 101.13, there's your entry point, right? Keep it simple. Don't get emotional. Just whatever it is, that's your number you're looking for. Dr. Bonnie, good to see you. Been a while. Merlin, do you have any thoughts on the RV of the Iraqi dinar? I do not. What I was talking about with my crypto program today for Trading Academy was there's a bunch of different things. Right now, we're screwing up the stablecoin legislation here in the United States, right? So right away, the U.S., our elected officials, our senators, are voting on the Genius Act, which is a bill to regulate stablecoins. Now, I absolutely believe we need rules on stablecoins. We need to define rules, make it very clear, and make it safe for consumers. The problem that's stalling this bill, unfortunately, is President Trump's actions. It's his actions not only with the Trump coin that he did, the meme coin. They're concerned about his activity in crypto, but it also has to do with DJT, the stock, as well as World Liberty Financial, which just secured a $2 billion deal using an unregulated stablecoin that he has issued. So they're really concerned now that Trump is off his rocker with regards to crypto and digital assets, and therefore they're not going to pass the bill. So we have some fight ahead here to see how this all shapes up. But Trump and World Liberty Financial are getting themselves involved with some pretty big Saudi Arabian deals. Now, for those who don't know, World Liberty Financial, which Trump owns 70+% of, Wyckoff, his foreign attaché, his foreign aide to the Middle East, is on the board of World Liberty Financial, and so are his sons. Granted, so are President Trump's sons. So it does start to get a little bit shady here, like why are they doing this deal? Why is there a $2 billion deal using World Liberty Financial stablecoin, which has no real rules around it, to buy into an investment on part of the Saudis into Binance? It's this really bizarre, convoluted mess that should stop people and go, hold on. This looks really suspect to problems, fraud, manipulation, all that type of stuff. So I can't say I fault whether it's the Democrats or Republicans that didn't vote for this bill. I can't fault them. I got to say, if it was me, I would also fault them because there's provisions in there that sound like there's really lenient things that would exempt Trump from any persecution or prosecution. So we will hopefully hammer those details out with this Genius Act, get it passed, and then we get stablecoin. And the reason I bring this one up is Saudi Arabia and the Middle East already approved a stablecoin. Maybe this is what you're talking about, Dr. Bonnie. They have a dirham-backed cryptocurrency or stablecoin that is approved by the central bank. It's not a CBDC, but it is a third-party stablecoin that is approved by the central bank of Abu Dhabi, of the UAE. And what that's going to do is that's going to facilitate much faster transactions, trade, all through that Middle East using a digital medium. So it's kind of nice for us because we can look at how it works for them. But honestly, we should be the leaders here. We should absolutely be the leaders with regards to stablecoins. And unfortunately, I think I think the president kind of messed things up a little bit by being overly aggressive. I know that some of you are big fans of President Trump and some of you hate him. That's irrelevant. But I think we'd all agree that you should focus more on geopolitical issues, trade, as opposed to securing business deals using digital assets for a company that you own, right? That to me is a conflict of interest, regardless of my opinions about the man. So that's shady there. So no, Dr. Bonnie, I don't have too much input there other than knowing that the Middle East has already got their stablecoin issue squared away. Their stablecoin, by the way, is backed 1-to-1. So for every dollar that goes in, there's a dirham held behind it. So there are no derivatives behind the scenes. Like Tether, USDT, has corporate bonds and municipal bonds and bonds from different countries. There's no rules there, which makes it very, very dangerous. Another question that came up the other day was about taxation. I think it was, I don't remember who it was. I didn't take time to write it down. I apologize. I had brought up the point in the past that, if I hear that President Trump is going to remove capital gains tax on cryptocurrency, you'd hear me screaming with joy from wherever you guys live because I have a pretty big tax hit. So I thought I would talk about that for just a second here as it kind of dovetails into the whole stablecoin thing, which is crypto taxation. Now, I have done as much research as I care to do on Trump's tax bill. Nowhere in the entire tax proposal, what's it called? I think it's called like the big, beautiful tax bill or something like that. I thought it was kind of humorous that that's what his tax bill is called. But nowhere in there does it say anything to the extent of how we're going to tax cryptocurrency. And what happened was Eric Trump has said we should remove capital gains tax on cryptocurrency. So unfortunately, that's way down the list of priority. I don't see that happening anytime soon. Maybe we'll get it, but I don't think it's going to go through. I think we're going to have capital gains tax on crypto, et cetera. But yeah, I would love to. No tax on tips, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. So you don't get tips, Merlin? I don't get tips. Nope. Everyone will swallow the red pill eventually. It seems like it's going that way. So yeah, I wanted to just real quickly address that because I while I'm talking about it and I'm hopeful, I don't think it's going to happen. I do not think we're going to see a capital gains exemption for cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It would be great if we did. Oh man, it would be absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. But yeah, nope. I think it's got too much red tape to go through till we get to that point. And not going to happen. What else do we have? Another question. Let me bring this one up because I remember this one just came in under my tradermerlin@gmail.com account, so you guys can email me there. Let me bring up the question so I don't make any mistakes with it. This is from Jeff McKay. Good to see you, Jeff. He says, what the heck is up with NRG? It's going to the moon. So let's talk about energy stocks here for a little bit. Obviously, we have discussed this in the past. We've talked a bit about energy, nuclear power. As time goes on, there's going to be more and more and more demand for energy, right? I think that's an irrefutable truth, especially with what's going on with AI, with what's going on with EVs, electric vehicles. That just needs more and more and more energy. So where are we going to get this energy from? Well, there's a lot of companies that are pushing the envelope, trying to do as much as they can with energy, and I think NRG might fall into that. They're a Texas-based company. They're doing, as I dug into the profile of them, they're doing like all aspects of energy. You name it. Wind, solar, alternative, coal, whatever. They are doing as much as they can. And I don't know the details about it, but I would expect, and I just kind of looking at XLE myself, I may try to dig a little bit deeper and see if I can find an ETF that excludes oil. If I can find an energy ETF that strips out oil but also gives me the other factors there, like nuclear, like wind, like solar, I may actually be interested in the longer term because I think you're going to see much more of a push. If you've been following Elon Musk, he's been on Twitter a lot slamming the United States for not using enough solar. And he's pointing at China saying, do you see how much energy they're generating from solar? He says at some point all energy will be solar. Well, that'll be way past my lifetime before we exhaust all fossil fuels. But I think it is worthwhile to look at companies and see which ones are kind of leading that charge. And we brought up quite a few of them on a show I did a while back called Going Nuclear. You guys might remember that one. And that Going Nuclear show, I focused on a lot of them like CEG. This is Constellation Energy. Now, unfortunately, we didn't bring this one back up when we hit these low points down on 159. I mean, CEG has been doing absolutely fantastic and then had a just gigantic fall, which would have presented a great long-term opportunity. Of course, shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? It dropped 54%. Now it's rallied from 162 bucks to 280 in just the past month and a half. Phenomenal run. I know that several of you are in SMR, which has also had a fantastic rally over the past couple of months. Now, granted, it's well off its highs up here at 32 bucks, but it's also significantly off those lows of 11 that it achieved back on April 3rd. So, I think there is a bigger push. I'm definitely in that camp that says nuclear power is going to be a much greater topic for our elected officials going forward. SMR's on that scope. You got OKLO, which is Sam Altman's one. Again, big drop in price from its highs up around 57 bucks, fell all the way down into 17, but now we're ripping again back up to 37 bucks. What were some of the other ones? NXE, Next Era Energy is another one that's playing in that nuclear space and multiple different areas. You had CCJ. This is Camco Corp. They all had that big sell-off, but they have been blazing hot the past 3 weeks. So those of you who are still in it, I hope you're still doing very well there. What is the other one? Vistra. Vistra was another big one. VST. So there's Vistra Energy. Same thing. I mean, these all look very, very similar. There's a couple other ones in there that I can remember. Quad U, which is Energy Fuels, and BWXT. There you go. Just build my own portfolio of just those ones. Solar Farms is not as green as we think. Yeah, we know that. I think everybody knows that solar is not as green as we. I think that the cost to build the panels and all that stuff is pollutive, right? It's not that great. However, let's look at solar technology today as the cars in the 1950s. That's how I view it, right? We had vehicles that moved in the 1950s and they were cool. They're collector's items today, but as we evolve, that technology behind that car got more efficient. You got better gas mileage, you got better safety ratings, you got better features and functionality in those vehicles, and now we have things like, full FSD cars. With solar, I would imagine that there's going to be more and more focus on maybe different methods of solar collection, which will clean up some of that contamination, pollution aspect that solar does collect. So yes, I agree with you. I was really excited back in 2005 or 6. There was an interview with some guy talking about nano solar. And I can't remember what the name of the company was. They're probably long gone. But the concept was pretty simple. He had solar paints, solar collecting paints. And can you imagine, I know many of you live in California, but we have the I-5 here that goes from the Mexican border all the way through California, all the way through Oregon, all the way through Washington, to the Canadian border. And it's like, at a minimum, it's 2 lanes. Some points that thing's like 8 lanes across. Imagine if there's a period of time where we figure out how to spray that road with a paint that collects solar energy, right? That's thousands of miles. And if you get that type of solar collectors, and we make all, and I know this is far-fetched. You guys are like, Merlin, you're talking sci-fi stuff. Imagine that all the roads in the United States are now solar collection panels. This whole story changes, right? That is a massive amount of collectors, and my guess is it'll probably happen. We'll probably make these plates, they're like single lane wide plates that are 8 feet by 8 feet, and we'll just build roads out of these plates, and they'll be solar collectors. I see that kind of down the road, but there needs to be some cost outlay by companies, because the reward, I think, will be pretty darn good. But you're right, Andres. Solar is bad on some levels, right? Obviously, its renewable part is great. You're not really contaminating the environment by collecting the energy. It's the building of the materials. Oh, you talking Duke Energy as well? I saw Duke on there, DUK. Yep. Duke Energy, wow. Something's wrong with Duke. They better put their Dukes up because they're getting punched. They're down from 124 down to 112 in just the past 6 sessions. That's not very good. Not looking too good there. Can you put expensive windows on your house, such as pellet? Or do I put expensive windows on my house? I don't. No. No, my windows were here. Unless someone breaks the window, I got no reason to change it. I don't even have solar on my house, and I thought about adding it, but I keep wanting to wait until it gets better and better and more efficient. But I would have no problem putting solar on my roof. Elon Musk's, I think it's nephew or cousin, one of his family members actually started Solar City, which Elon Musk bought from him years ago. But that was their thing, building tiles. Looked like tiles that collected the solar energy. That'd be fantastic. The whole roof was just a solar collection panel as opposed to having to drill into my existing roof. Anyway. And the next ice age, approaches, we'll go back to burning coal. You never know. You never know. So Musk, I don't believe that Musk controls the board. I don't believe so. And there was talks about with Tesla guys. There was talks. You heard rumors that they were looking for a replacement for Elon Musk, which the board has adamantly denied, saying they said that that's not going to happen. But I don't know. What else do I have on here? Let's talk one more little. This is not conspiracy bit. This is fact. So you guys might know the Apple CEO, right? Apple CEO made some statements recently. Or sorry, not Apple CEO. It was it Google? Let me make sure I got the CEO names right here. Yeah. Man, now I'm losing my track. I believe it was Apple. So it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't Apple. Either way, let me fix my statement here before I lose track. The statement that I read, and it was from Satya Nadella, said that 30% of the code that's written for Microsoft was the name I was looking for. Sorry, 30% of the code that they're hiring thousands of engineers to write, says up to 30% of the code is written by AI. Now, I saw that, and I thought this was very interesting because I know a lot of us are bullish on Microsoft. I'm bullish on Microsoft. I mean, it's hard not to be bullish on Microsoft. They seem to be at the forefront of AI. But what do you guys think this is going to do for Microsoft? Type into chat. If you know that 30% of the code that they're writing on a daily basis, right? And they're issuing all types of programs and stuff, and 30% of that code is now written by AI, what do you think the impact is going to be for Microsoft? How does that hit them down the line? There's multiple ways to look at it. Lisa says bigger profits. Kenny says layoffs and bullish. Yeah. And it's funny because that it's like a teeter-totter that's going to slam one way, right? If I'm the CEO of Microsoft and I look at my engineering department and I realize that 30% of their code is being written by AI, I'm cutting 30% of my workforce, if not more. If not more. I'm going to just get out of there. As Indigo says, going to make them more profitable. They just laid off 6,000 today. They're going to lay off more. And this is that trend that myself and Don talked about, which is there are jobs that are the low-lying fruit for AI. And I think that it's happening right now. And it's just going to escalate. It's not going to get, if you're a full-time worker, it's not going to get better. It's most likely going to be challenged by AI in some way, shape, or form. In my crypto class the other day, it was really kind of funny. I was sitting there and I said, guys, let me just show you how easy it is to use AI. And I went into AI and said, write me a smart contract. And basically I told it to make a smart contract that was for a wager between two people on the weather here in Southern California. And within 10 seconds, it spit all the code for it. Now, I'm not a code writer. That would have taken me hours, if not weeks, to finish writing that code because I just don't know code. But even you experienced guys, got to admit, this is saving a tremendous amount of time. However, I fired 30% of my workforce. I still need to have some people to vet that code and make it better. But remember, part of what makes AI great is you have the ability to take a language model and make it your own. So if I'm Microsoft right now, I have guaranteed behind closed doors, I have a programming large language model just for programming. It's code-based. And I'm doing everything I can to teach that model how my code looks, how it works, and how to be a Microsoft code writer. From there, the efficiencies, the profits for Microsoft are probably going to continue. Because not only, oops, I have MicroStrategy on my chart. Thank you. Thanks, Big Eb. I saw that. There we go. This is better. So if I have Microsoft's chart looking like this, my assumption is it's going to keep on going. Because you're laying off costly employees that could cost you a couple $100,000 a year and all the benefits that go with them. And I'm whittling my workforce down and putting in the people that are great. I'm getting rid of I saw the chart. They said a lot of project managers are moving away or getting let go. So the middleman, you don't need them. AI is now doing project management. So yeah, keep your eye on this. I think this could be that piece that creates another irrational move up in our equity markets. The kind you guys just go, what? This doesn't make sense. Like we saw from 2009 till today, right? That just monstrous move that just never seems to stop. At some point, though, we'll get to a crescendo where these people are getting laid off who has money to buy goods and services anymore, and then we have some problem. Now, that's years down the road, but that trend is starting. AI job destruction is absolutely a real thing right now. More and more people getting laid off because of it, and it is concerning. What does Chad say? I don't know how to write code, but if taught other people how to use AI to write code for training, but have taught, yeah. The AI stuff is just, it's mind-boggling to me. Mind-boggling. It will be good for profits until no one can buy their own customer. Exactly. That's exactly Indigo. Yep. I think that was it for me for today. I talked about energy demand, we talked about crypto taxation, and of course we have the title there, which is The Train Keeps It Rolling. So let's go into what's happening for tomorrow. We had no real economic announcements today, at least nothing that was important. There was a couple smaller little pieces. You had some FOMC members speaking. You had crude oil inventories, which showed a pretty big surge up in crude oil to 3.5 million barrels. But it's all about manana. Now, there's a couple things. Number one, if you trade British pound, you do have at 2 a.m. Eastern time. So I will probably be going to bed at that time. That's what, 11 p.m. here. That's about my normal bedtime. If you trade the British pound, they do have their GDP numbers coming out tomorrow. And by the way, it does not look good. They're expecting no economic growth. This is bad. Let me go zoom in here a little bit on since 2023. They're expecting this number to drop to 0. Not a good sign for the UK. Obviously, it's been below there a few times, but that could be a wild mover for the British pound if anybody trades it. Now, they have a lot of other economic data, but really for me, the big stuff is going to be 1 hour before the equity markets open here in the United States. You notice we have our PPI numbers. So you got PPI, which is expected to go from negative 0.4. Remember all the talk about deflation, yay! Now it's like, oh, we're back up to 0.2. So the expectations are that we're going to jump back up to 0.2, which as I zoom in here, that would be where my cursor is. So coming all the way back up to that number there, which puts us back in line with where we've been for about the past couple of years. So at that point, we could call that a one-off data point, that big sell-off of negative 0.4 we saw for the month of April. So that is the big news for tomorrow. You also have retail sales. And the reason this is important, again, is I believe the data is skewed. I believe we have a completely biased reading last month because of the tariffs. Tariffs showed a 1.4% increase in retail sales. And that, again, I was a part of that. I bought some stuff because I thought tariffs are going to be here for a while and drive prices higher. Right now, they're saying retail sales increasing 0. That's the expectation tomorrow. That will also happen 1 hour before the equity markets open. So that'll be your big stuff for the day. I'm sure it's going to create some pretty big waves. I don't know which way it's going to go. As I mentioned earlier, you've got a market right now that is just kind of hesitating. And I think they're hesitating and waiting for that PPI number to drop. You got that small little range here on the S&P going into tonight's session as we roll into a new session. Again, those levels are, if it breaks above 59.27, you got yourself a good bullish run here on a breakout. If it breaks down below 58.90, you have yourself a nice little retracement. Now, I would put my wager on the downside here below 58.90. We shall see. I'm still short the SPY. Yes, Big M. Yep, still short. Indigo says the impacts of tariffs are still coming. Not only do I believe that the impacts of tariffs are still coming, I don't believe we're done with tariffs. I believe before all this started, you guys heard my perspective of it. It's shock and awe. You do the most audacious thing up front. You scare the bejesus out of the American people and the world by demanding all these crazy tariffs, and then you work it down a little bit tighter. But then it'll expand a little bit, and then it'll go tighter. And then it'll expand a little bit, and then ultimately we will come to a solution. There's no argument in my mind, no doubt in my mind, we're going to come to a resolution here. But I don't think that the shock and awe is quite done just yet, right? Quite the opposite. We have quite a bit of time before we see how this all pans out. Until something is signed, sealed, delivered, and we can put Trump back, take him off his pedestal of tariffs, then we'll be okay. But until then, volatility is abound, and I wouldn't take anything for granted, even what the press is saying in the media. Anyway, that's my rant for today. Thank you, guys. Yes, I'm still short. And again, Big Ed, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I may be wrong. It's okay. Oh, by the way, just so you guys can commiserate with me, did you see SMCI again today? I'm long 2,000 shares of SMCI, but I sold the $37 strikes, and it jumped up again another 15%. I mean, remarkable move for SMCI today. Just crazy move. I'm not doom and gloom. I'm pullback. I think we're still going higher. My bias has changed. I feel like the market is giving us a a much clearer signal of calming down of the shock and awe. My reason for thinking the markets were going to continue to drift down this year was the tariffs. And until we got past that, I thought we were going to continue to drift lower. Now, we're not past it yet, but right now, everyone seems to be fairly optimistic we're going to reach some resolution and markets go higher. So therefore, I am feeling much more optimistic on these markets. However, I do think a pullback is in order, and we shall see. Price chart looks like that. Trend is your friend to the bend at the end. It hasn't bent yet, so I'm going counter trend for sure. We'll see if it pans out tomorrow. You can laugh at me tomorrow, Oliver. Accounting issues settled. Not sure if I know what that's pertaining to, Margaret. Accounting issues for what? I don't know the answer to that one. All right. And I actually owe Margaret a show tomorrow. Oh, yes. Yeah. Accounting issues are settled. They actually got double upgrades. So there were multiple firms that upgraded their targets on SMCI, and that's what caused that big pop to the upside. Yeah, they got one yesterday and then another one today. Oh, well. I'll write that one off, be done with that trade altogether. I'd rather put my capital to use in a company that I really believe in. I didn't really believe too much in SMCI. It was more about the premium. So we shall see. All right, everybody, if you want something answered on the program tomorrow, Larry Jacobson will be our guest. We're going to talk about, I guess it's going to be a lot about Warren Buffett. Hopefully it doesn't come across as too boring, but as we know, Warren Buffett stepped down as the CEO of, or he's stepping down as a CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, ending 60 years. I mean, it's an incredible legacy that he has, done an unbelievable job, and Larry is a fanboy, an absolute fanboy of Warren Buffett. He's got pictures with him, and just I think it's his boyhood idols to meet Warren Buffett and go out to dinner with him. But we'll get some perspectives on what it means for Berkshire Hathaway, talk a lot about the philosophy and psychology of Warren Buffett and his methodology to markets. And if you guys have questions you want to know, let me know. Email me at tradermerlin@gmail.com. That's it. Happy Wednesday. I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.